Yes, so we have Sandra here, and she is our feature artist for July for our Draw online store. She will have 6 illustrations up at the online store, and they are all 16 by 20 inches. And we only have 25 editions for each illustration. But before we look at the illustrations, let's know more about Sandra. So, Sandra, can you tell us why you want to become an illustrator?
Oh yes. So I I always wanted to be an artist, but I ended up going to school for fashion design because my parents thought that being an artist was not going to be practical. I was going to be able to make a living. So, and then most of my cohort of friends were going off to regular colleges. So I decided not to even apply to a regular college. I applied to Cornell University because they were the only university that I could find that had an actual fashion design program at the time. They had a textiles and apparel program.
Okay.
And it was just really sort of starting out then. So that's where I went to school, made my parents very happy to go to an Ivy League school. But so I learned fashion design at Cornell, which is really funny because I was doing laundry for homework because I had to learn about textiles too. Right? I still remember like my friends are like, you know, in the engineering school and they're like studying, cramming for engineering exams. And I'm like, yeah, I have to wash these swatches. You know, so I was learning about textiles and apparel. So I went to school to become a fashion designer, and I did do it. When I graduated, I got some funding from my family to do my own fashion line for a little while, but shortly after that, I had to go into the family business to be to help out. We were in a completely different line of work, manufacturing plastics from China, but I had to take over the family business because my father became ill, and so I took over the family business. Put all of that aside. So after I left the family business many years later and raised my kids, I found Instagram, and
you found me.
yeah, and I found Marcus. That's right. I found, you know, a whole fashion illustration, like it's a whole niche, and started following people. And one of the fashion illustrators that I found was talking about how she was entering the Draw Dot contests, and that's how I found you.
Ooh, wow, it's word of mouth.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think it was like 4 years ago, probably.
Well, your first open cup illustration is going to be one of the 6 illustrations anyway, so we can talk about that later. But how will you describe your illustration style, though? And okay, before that, from fashion designer to illustrator, what makes you want to draw?
I think actually from the very beginning, what I really wanted to do was draw, not actually make the clothes, because of what I found in fashion design school was it's really hard and technical.
Yes.
I love the beauty of fashion, right? And you know, I thought I wanted to be able to actually, you know, make those clothes, but I just wanted to come up with the idea, or, you know, come up with a pretty picture of it and have someone else take care of making it. But as a fashion designer, you really have to think about, you know, to be a good fashion designer, you have to think about how it fits the body instead of just coming up with a great idea, you know, and not having it actually function. That doesn't work as a really good fashion designer. So that's why fashion illustration is great, because I can actually view all the fashion designers' work and take elements from them that I admire and then interpret it in my own way, and I get to draw and paint doing it. So that's what I love about it.
And so how will you describe your illustration style?
I would say actually very colorful. You know, that's something that usually watercolor is not. I'm a watercolor artist, so all of my work that's for sale was originally created in watercolor. I would say that watercolors are not usually known for vibrant colors because people tend to use a lot of water, and they're kind of faded and
Yeah.
pretty and things like that. But I think my signature is that I do like to use intense colors and really, bring out the contrast. And I also generally like to do real, one step short of realistic,
Mhm.
and just very colorful and pretty, and I don't know, for lack of a better word, like beautiful to look at, as
Absolutely.
opposed to something gritty or something very,
Yeah, to me, it's just like when I look at your illustration, they're really soft. They tend to be really romantic. They're like, they have stories. And
yeah.
that's what I really love. And then when you look at the print, you're like, okay, so what is this happening? Why is this like character doing this? Or what's the story gonna happen next? So it's actually really like, it's a really, really, they are really, really nice like storytelling pieces.
Yeah, I do like to tell a story, because I think one of my art teachers, when I first started doing watercolor, she's like, what's the point of just putting, recreating a picture
Yeah.
when someone can take a better photograph of it? You want to bring out, you want to make people think a little bit. You want them to say, hey, what was she thinking when she made this? Or, it's your interpretation. So that's what being an artist is all about.
Absolutely. Illustrators, take note of that. All right. So we are actually going to look at some of your illustrations right now. Let me just share the screen. And so, okay, this is the first print, first illustration that you'll be selling at the store. Can you give us a little background about this illustration?
Okay, so this is my interpretation of a very famous woman in Chinese history, and her name is Wu Zetian, and she was the first, yeah, I technically the only woman emperor in Chinese history, and this was back in the 7th century, like 600,
Yep.
650 AD. She started out as a concubine in the Tang emperor's harem, and schemed and worked her way up. And so she started out as a concubine for one emperor, and she ended up marrying his son and became the empress. Like, so after she married his son, and if you know anything about sort of harems and court intrigue and that kind of stuff, in order to really make it in history, you have to be tough as nails. You have to survive court intrigue. And so she not only married the son, but when the son, she became his co-ruler. He respected her opinions so much. She was so smart that he asked her for a lot of things. And so she became his co-ruler. And then when he became sick, she took over as regent of the country. And then when he died, eventually she created her own dynasty. So this is a very impressive woman. And I actually initially created her for an Inktober. Like, I was doing an Inktober, which is when you do a drawing every day based on a theme, and you do it in black and white, or pen and ink. So I did that on digitally, and I created a quick illustration of her. And it was, for some reason, everybody was like, oh, I love this drawing. Are you going to do it in color? And so a few months later, for Chinese New Year, I decided red is the color of Chinese New Year. I'm going to redo this drawing in color. And so this is how she ended up. And it's really definitely one of my favorite pieces, because she's a powerful woman. Oh yeah, the theme for October that month was cruel. So that's why I chose her, because she was known for being cruel. And so, yeah. And, but I just love the fact that she's a powerful woman, really to be that kind of person in China back, what is it, 1,500 years ago. Uh,
Yes.
you really had to be special.
I mean, I really love the details on like on the clothes and on all the accessories. And Is there like a particular meaning with the symbol on her forehead? Do you know?
No, that's a lotus flower, and in the Tang Dynasty, and like in the Tang Dynasty, they used to
Yeah.
do like decorative things like that. But also, if you'll notice, like she's actually in the Tang Dynasty, the women actually did wear very revealing. You think of China and Asia, they're slightly more conservative, I would say, in some of the court clothing, but back in the Tang Dynasty, women wore very sexy things. They pushed up their uh, breasts to
Yeah.
attract
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
So I really did like that period of costume, and they did a lot of decorations on their hair as well. I'm not sure, exactly the story behind all of the decorations on her hair, but I know that the costume is very of that time.
Just so it's really, really elegant. And where will you suggest people to put this like print in the house?
This I definitely think, in the living room or the entryway where your guests will be, it's like a conversation piece for sure, because you can really talk about who she, because she's kind of a stunning person when
Yes.
you see her. So when you have guests over, they'll be curious, and it would be a good conversation piece to talk about, empowered women and Chinese history. There's just so many things to talk about for this piece. So I think that would be,
Living room. That could be a
yes,
living room, like a dining area, like hangout room. Then people will talk about this. Yeah,
yeah. Yep.
absolutely. Wow, I learned so much from this. It's so cool. All right, let's see if we move to the next piece. So, okay, so this one is really different than the Empress.
I know.
When I look at them, like, okay, so what is happening? Can you give me like an instruction of where I should look at first? It looks like an explosion. It looks like, I don't know. Give me the detail.
This one also starts with an E, I guess, but it's called evolution. And what happened with this piece is I met someone who has a similar story to me. She's also Asian. She's an artist. Actually, she was our guest on Cherry Asian
Oh,
Story. Sheila Darcy,
yeah,
Sketch Poetic.
yeah, yeah.
And so we were introduced by a friend when we started talking about how we started out with the background of Asian parents who didn't really believe artists could make a living doing what they did. And she has a completely different approach to art, and she does intuitive art, and she suggested that we collaborate and do a piece together and one night just for her to show me her approach. And so she started me down this path of like, when I need to take a break from, because watercolor is very, very, believe it or not, in a lot of ways technical, because it's such a spontaneous, it's hard to control medium.
Yeah.
You have to plan out the illustration way in advance because of the way the colors work. You can't just keep painting over it. So I have to think about a piece like Empress a lot before I create it.
Yeah.
For this process, she's like, we just let our intuitions go, and we come up with sort of an intention. You can come up with a word, an intention, a feeling, and you just go. And so when I worked with her that one night, we created a piece together, and she said, this is how it works. And so it became a release for me when I started doing stuff like this. I was like, I'm evolving. My work is going to evolve in a different direction. And so when I did this piece, I went in with the intention of like, with the thought, I'm going to evolve my work. And so that's why this piece is called Evolution. And also, so believe it or not, I mean, if you see, there are these little sort of wavy tail things
Yep.
sort of towards in the middle of, they look like tadpoles. And you know how, like in the sea of life, they're evolving into different creatures and emerging onto the land. So this whole thing just kind of speaks to me of yeah, sort of like a sea of life, and creatures are evolving all the time. And I just really, the process of this piece was, you know, I use a lot of water and I use intense inks and colors, and I let it flow on the page just according to how I feel.
Yep.
And when I'm done with the colors, it's very, very wet. It takes almost like overnight to dry, and then I go in with the ink
Mhm.
and I try to keep the same intention, and I just let the ink sort of carve out the actual shapes that are happening on this page. It looks very different from when it's just color to after adding the
Yep.
definition of the lines, and I just love this process.
And those are all like gold paint, right? Because I see some like
Yes,
sparkly. Wow,
yes,
it's really, really cool. Like to me, when I look at it, I thought it was some kind of abstract sea world with like different sea creatures coming out, or
yeah,
like your brain decided to explode.
yeah.
No.
And it's amazing because I actually, when I first created this, when I put it on Instagram, or I can't remember if I put it on Facebook or Instagram, but I did poll people to see what they saw. And like 90% of them saw sea creatures, which
Yeah,
is kind of what I went in, I went in with that intention, even though it's an abstract, people got that feeling from it. So it made me feel really,
yeah,
recognized.
you achieved that, and this is really different than the other artworks you have done. So perhaps you could just go for that path, go for this path, and start like drawing abstract like watercolor pieces.
It's really, really fun to do. And yeah, and actually one of my later pieces that's going to be on the online story is sort of a combination of the two,
Hmm.
like the abstract and the more representational. So I think I'm working in that direction. So yeah, between the realistic and the storytelling to the abstract, and I'm putting it all together now.
People, Sandra is evolving, so
Yes.
pick up this illustration now, because like a year later it might be completely different.
Yeah, so that's why this is called evolution. It's really definitely one of my favorite pieces when I started down this path.
Amazing, I love this. All right, so this one is named as the jazz singer.
Yes.
So story time.
Story time for this piece. So this was actually an open call submission, and this gown that she's wearing, a gown by Prabal Garung, and is for Draw Dot.
Mhm.
And he showed that collection at the Rainbow Room in New York.
Yep.
And to me, Rainbow Room has a lot of history, and people, I think of Rainbow Room and I think piano bar, people having dinner, and very kind of old school, civilized,
Yep.
and entertainment. So that's where the idea for this piece came from. Was it started with piano bar. I was going to put her on a piano bar, but
Mm.
then I was like, it's really hard to show off a gown when someone's laying on a piano bar. And so so I started looking into, I also thought of jazz immediately as well, not just piano bar, but like jazz piano bar. So I started looking up images of jazz singers, and this is kind of inspired by a photo I found of an actress, groundbreaking sort of actress singer called Eartha Kitt, who was also like a Broadway star. She was just so, I mean, she's one of like the first Black women to be really, prominent in entertainment, and she's just really amazing. And so that's why she has a very cat eye, kind of like Eartha Kitt, with, kind of had that and a very sharp bone structure. And yeah, and the idea is she's in a smoky room, and she's got a backup singer, and yeah, that's just the whole mood and feeling I wanted to create with this piece.
It's so classy. Whenever I look at this piece, I would like, what's the story behind this singer? What song she's singing? Who is actually watching her perform right now? Who is that guy behind the girl?
Yeah.
It's just so many questions, but overall you're like, oh yeah, I can relax. I just want to listen to her performance.
And I gave the idea of like there's a light shining on her face and hitting her shoulder, and she's under the spotlight, whereas her backup musician is in the background. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was really trying to create that mood there.
Well, people, if you have a pub, you have a cafe, get this print. I'm sure people will start looking at it and they will ask you, when can I perform at your cafe? So yeah, just giving you a tips.
Yeah, it'd be great, in your bar area, or over your bar cart, actually,
Yep.
or your actual bar if you have one.
Yes,
So
I think it's just really it's a beautiful piece. I just love the mood, the tone of it. Amazing. Yep. So this one, I know this one is your first submission to the Draw.open call.
well, actually, it wasn't my first submission because the first few didn't quite make the cut, Marcus.
Really?
Yeah, I think I started with the YSL one.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think that one was like sort of the rock and roll one, kind of the rocker kind of ish. So, and I mean, really, that was like my first time entering Draw Dot, and I had only been posting on Instagram briefly before that. I really didn't, find my groove yet.
Yep.
So I think this was probably my, I don't know, fourth submission to a Draw Dot open call. And there's a great story for this, actually.
Do tell.
I don't think I've ever told you this story,
Nope.
but so you had said, I finally figured it out when you put the open call out. You said something in the open call about, oh, this is such a fairy tale collection. This is a Mary Katransu 2018 collection. Is it spring summer? Yeah, spring summer 2018. And you said this is a very fairy tale collection, and I was like, oh, he's telling me something. So, I kind of went with that idea. I started looking up fairy tales, and this, for some reason, this dress just like the lilies and everything. There's the flower on her dress looks like a lily to me. I'm not sure if it actually is, but and I remember the story of Thumbelina, which is the story of a woman who didn't have a child, and she prayed to the fairies to give her her own child. Ooh. And they delivered her a little tiny child the size of a thumb. Okay. In a flower. And she's this precious, beautiful, perfect little thumb-sized baby. And she grew up to be really beautiful. And at one point, she was so tiny, the mother of a toad decided she wanted her to be her son's bride. So she snuck into, Thumbelina's mother's house and stole her away and imprisoned her on a lily pad. And Thumbelina was so sad, but like the fish in the pond and took pity on her. So they nibbled at the bottom of the lily pad so she could break free. Ooh. And then a butterfly came and towed her away down the river or down the stream to escape from marrying this terrible, ugly toad. And so that's how this illustration came about. And
okay, what about the white string in that illustration? Is there like any meaning with that little white string she's like holding on?
That was just my idea of there's got to be some way of her how's the butterfly going to carry her away. So I was like, I'm going to make her belt have a long white string.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yes, like one of the talking point when I look at this illustration is like, what is going on with that white string? Like, ask for help, or is someone carrying her away? I guess now you basically just answer my question, and whoever is watching this, yes, you have your answer too.
Yeah, I just love this story, and she ends up, finding a community of fairies, and she ends up marrying the fairy prince or something like that. So cute
Wow.
little story.
I
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
I love this piece more because when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it's really, really cool. I know there's a story, but I don't really know the entire story. But now, after 3 years, you finally like told me the entire story. So I'm like, that's amazing. Okay, I love it more now. Very, very cool.
Yeah, I think this would actually, be really nice in a nursery, it's a fashionable nursery for a girl, I think it would look really pretty in there. And it's got so many, it's got some pinks, it's got some greens, it's got some blues. It could go with a lot of color schemes too.
Yes, it's a really cheerful illustration. So yes,
Yeah.
and
And I
just
have to tell you the story behind the actual creating of the illustration. I don't know
yeah.
if you'll find it interesting, but so I got the date of the due date wrong. Because you know how it's usually due on a Sunday, but you post the first ones on a Thursday,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I had not been experienced to
Process that. Yes,
post that,
yes.
so I thought it was due the Thursday. So, like, I think the Saturday before
Yeah.
it was due on a Sunday, I found out. I For some reason I went to go check the website, and I was like, oh, it's due tomorrow, and I had only just finished the drawing, and I hadn't even started painting it, and I was like, oh no, this was so good, and I was like, I'm never going to make it. And I thought to myself, who cares? Nobody's going to care anyway. I'm
Yeah.
the only one that's,
Yeah.
miserable about this. But I posted the drawing in my stories, and I said, oh, just found out draw dot deadline is tomorrow. I'm not going to make it. And somebody who is a follower that I didn't really even know, that I didn't know at the time, just answered to my story, oh, but it's such a pretty drawing. You should finish it anyway. And I was like, okay. So I pulled an all-nighter and I finished it. And also that Sunday was Super Bowl Sunday. I had a house full of people that my husband invited over.
Wow.
And so I was like, hi guys, I'm painting in the studio. I painted all night, all day, and I submitted it. And I was like, if I don't win this, if I don't get chosen,
I will quit drawing if I don't.
but yeah, so that's what happened with that. And that person, she was a student at the time. She was learning fashion design and illustration in Kenya.
Mhm.
We became friends. And actually, you might know her name. Her name is Phoebe Uma. She has submitted to some open calls as well. But she wasn't posting any illustrations. We became friends, and I started encouraging her to do fashion illustration and actually posting her work, because she's very young.
Yep.
She's like 25 now, but like she's like a huge illustrator in Kenya now. Because she decided to highlight African designers. So look at all the connections that you have brought about. It's kind of amazing.
Thank you. But I'm fascinated by the whole story about this piece because when I first saw it, I only knew that much, but now I'm like, okay, wow, that is interesting, and you made it. So
Yeah.
props to you. And then now you're selling this piece at the online store. So if you want a piece of Sandra's history, this is it.
Yeah, this is the one that started it all.
Yes. Wow. So fascinating. I need time to digest right now. All right. So this one is Valentino. I know that because
Yeah.
it was Valentino and Butterfly. So, and I
Yeah.
think this is also one of your sort of like your signature pieces as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I've kind of figured out that like flowers and bright colors, this is all me. When I see something with a lot of color like this, I want to illustrate it.
Yep.
It just attracts me. And this had every element, the headpieces. That collection really for me was quite for, I don't know if you felt the same way. It felt like kind of a breakout collection for Pier Paolo.
Yep.
Yeah, and Pier Paolo Piccoli, who's the head
That's
designer
correct.
for Valentino. It just was so luxurious and so much volume, and the headpieces just really spoke to me. The flowers, and I was at the time, I remember thinking, oh, what kind of a story could I tell with this illustration? And it took me a while, and I thought, all these flowers, they're just gonna, it's like a garden, and they're gonna attract uh, butterflies and hummingbirds. And so that theme was actually pretty easy to come up with. Once I decided, yeah, it feels like a garden with all these flowers. So yeah, and I remember going to the store to buy the specially vibrant pink color to
Wow.
so, and then also there are actually some metallic touches in the butterflies too.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
do love metallic, bright color. Um, yeah, and
cool.
I was trying to go for just that whole feeling of volume and brightness in a garden.
But but what I could say is this also reminds me of a classy version of traffic light.
Right.
Like red, yellow, green. But because of that green, I also give you like a little purple. But I mean, composition wise, it's like super good. Like when you look at it, you don't feel like, wow, I'm fixing my eyes on one particular look because all three looks are pretty vibrant. So that's why you're like, I can actually can't like keep looking like side by side, like, okay, go for the
Yeah,
green, then go back to the red and go to the yellow, and then now we can go back to the red and the green. So it's really, really beautiful. And yes, if you can see it, it's like basically the girls are flowers and they like a garden. Like come take, I don't know, take honey from me.
yeah. Yeah, and I have to say, I'm very aware of composition when I'm
Yep.
painting. I like to balance things out. I'm always putting it putting it 5 or 8 feet away and
Yep.
stepping back to
Yeah.
look at how balanced it is, if there's lights and darks, and if there's you know color in and bringing things to make a cohesive composition. So I'm very aware of that.
Absolutely. And I think this will be a really good piece for the study room as well. Because when you're tired, when you look at it, you're like, oh, I kind of see life. I see like hope or like see some, butterfly nature. It gives you that feeling like, oh, relax.
Yeah,
And then when
definitely.
you look at this piece, you're like, yes, I can relax for a little bit and then get back to work. That should be me basically doing.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, this piece, put it in the workroom. This is like the workroom piece from
Yeah,
Sandra.
I
Yeah,
feel like it's an inspiring piece because it's got so much vibrancy, color, and yeah, just has a lot of life to it.
absolutely. So we do have, I know that you are still working on one more piece
Mhm.
for the Zodiac series, which will be selling like you will have this at the store for the whole year.
Mhm.
Like, okay, for the rest of what you just saw, they only last for 1 month. But then Sandra also has one piece for the Zodiac sign, and that it will last for a whole year. And every month she will like work on a new piece. So I know that you're working on the Leo. Can you give us a little like hints of what to expect?
Okay, so like I said, my style is evolving a little bit, and I'm going to blend my abstract, uh, sort of free flowing style for my abstract pieces with my realistic style. So this Leo is going to be something really vibrant and special, and has a lot of movement to it.
So it's gonna be super magical.
Yes, absolutely.
Is it going to be a figure or animal or like a
It's kind of,
monster?
yeah, it's kind of like an animal, because it's Leo, but it's figurative, and colorful. And I think the other thing is, most of the community is fashion illustrators
Yep.
and women's fashion illustrations. So but I wanted this zodiac series to appeal to more than just women. I didn't want it to be a strictly feminine piece.
When I look at them, when I look at not even like for Draw Dot online store, but for other like prints as well. When I look at Zodiac, they're usually like female oriented, and then some most of the time I cannot relate to those pieces, and I'll be like, I wish there's something that I can buy that is sort of like when I look at the pieces gender neutral, and it makes me want to put it at home.
Yeah,
So yeah, I hope that for the whole series, aside from Virgo, I'm pretty sure Virgo will be a
yeah, yeah,
but aside from that, I hope that for the rest of the series, it'll be like something that anyone can buy, not like gender specific.
yeah. That's what I'm going for.
So cool. I'm excited to see that. And again, we have a month for you to buy all Sandra's like prints. If you want to buy all of them, absolutely welcome. You can just buy 25 editions for each print and just give it to your friends. Or you can tell all your
I'll have
friends,
matching ones.
you can tell all your friends about it, and then so they can purchase and support all the like artists as well. And because like the money you spend on like the artists spend on Draw Dot, it just help us to build this community bigger and bigger, so just so that the artists can produce more interesting artworks for you to see and buy in the future. And who knows, maybe after like July, Sandra might come back later on to sell another set, like another series, and then that could be like it could be in 6 months, 8 months, you never know. Depends on the time, depends on how popular you guys like want her to be. Because honestly, if everyone buys your prints, then I'll be like, Sandra, come back, because we
So buy my prints.
we want you to come back for the second round right now, because there's a gigantic demand. So it's all up to you guys. If you guys want to like help support the community, this is the time. Support me, support the artists, support everyone in the community. Yeah.
Yeah, the community's awesome, and we love creating work, and it's about the process. But
Yeah.
if you like our work, the way you can support us is to show it by spending some money and encouraging us. It's not only about the money part, but
Yes.
it is also about the money part.
Well, I'm just gonna say in the spiritual world, money is sort of like an energy. It's just sort of like an energy exchange. You give us the energy, we give you some physical products. That's a
Yeah,
good trade.
and you're gonna love having them in your home, really.
Yes, we can make you love them. So thank you so much, Sandra, for talking to me about all the prints. I'm sure that everyone have more knowledge about the illustrations now. So I'm excited to see like what the customers are going to react to your prints.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, and then until next time. And yes, you will also record another video for the Leo piece. So make sure that you go to that piece and watch that video as well. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep.